Take the largest land animal alive today, an African elephant, roughly 6 tons, 12 feet tall at the shoulder. Now stand it next to Argentinosaurus, a dinosaur estimated at 70 to 100 tons, over 100 feet long. That's not a bigger elephant. That's a different category of life entirely. For over a century, people have asked the same question. Why were dinosaurs so much bigger than anything alive today? And for just as long, the most common answer people reach for has actually been wrong. Let's start with the myth. You've probably heard some version of this. Dinosaurs could grow bigger because gravity used to be weaker, or the air used to be thicker, so it supported more weight. Both ideas sound plausible. Both show up constantly in comment sections. And both are, as far as the actual science is concerned, not supported by evidence. Earth's gravity has been essentially constant for hundreds of millions of years. There's no credible geological or physical evidence that it was meaningfully weaker during the Mesozoic era. So if it wasn't gravity, what was it? The real answer isn't one single trick. It's a combination of several biological advantages working together. And once you understand them, dinosaur gigantism stops looking like a mystery and starts looking like an inevitable outcome of the right conditions lining up at once. Let's start with the one modern science considers most important, their respiratory system. Mammals, including us, breathe using a single set of lungs that work like a bellows. Air goes in, oxygen gets extracted, air goes back out the same way it came in. It's a system that works fine for the sizes mammals typically reach, but it has real limits on efficiency. Dinosaurs, especially the giant long-necked sauropods, appear to have used a completely different system, one still found today in their closest living relatives, birds. Birds have what's called a unidirectional airflow system, connected to air sacs that extend through much of their skeleton, including hollow spaces inside their bones. Air flows through bird lungs in a continuous loop, extracting oxygen far more efficiently than the in-and-out mammalian system. Fossil evidence, specifically hollow, air-pocketed spaces found inside sauropod vertebrae and rib bones, strongly suggests many dinosaurs had this same bird-like air sac system. And that mattered for two huge reasons. First, more efficient oxygen extraction meant these animals could fuel an enormous, energy-hungry body without needing proportionally enormous lungs. Second, and this is the part people miss, air sacs extending into the skeleton actually made dinosaur bones lighter, not heavier, relative to their size. Counterintuitively, some of the largest land animals to ever exist had skeletons that were, proportionally, less dense than a modern elephant's. Hollow, air-filled bone structures reduced the weight the skeleton had to support, even as the animal's total size increased dramatically. That's advantage number one, an efficient, lightweight breathing and skeletal system borrowed from what would eventually become bird anatomy. Advantage number two, growth strategy. Mammals, generally speaking, grow quickly to adult size and then stop. There's a defined endpoint. Dinosaurs, based on bone growth ring studies similar to tree rings, appear to have grown quickly during a rapid juvenile growth spurt. But many large species kept growing more slowly for most or all of their lives. This is sometimes described as indeterminate growth. Combine indeterminate growth with a long lifespan. Some large sauropods are estimated to have lived 70, 80, potentially over 100 years. And you get animals that simply had far more time, cumulatively, to keep adding size year after year, decade after decade, compared to mammals that hit a genetic size ceiling relatively early in life. Advantage number three, and this one is environmental rather than biological. The world itself was different. Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels during much of the Mesozoic era were significantly higher than today, by some estimates, several times higher. Higher CO2 generally correlates with faster, denser plant growth. Higher oxygen levels during certain periods of the Mesozoic may have also played a role in supporting larger, more metabolically active animals, though this factor is debated more than the others among researchers. More importantly, the plant life itself was different. Conifers, cycads, and ferns, the dominant vegetation for most of the dinosaur era, were tougher, more fibrous, and less nutritionally dense than the flowering plants and grasses that would evolve much later, largely after the dinosaurs were gone. To extract enough nutrition from this lower-quality plant food, herbivorous dinosaurs needed enormous gut capacity to ferment and digest huge volumes of tough plant material over long periods. And larger overall body size directly enables larger gut capacity. In other words, the food available essentially selected for bigger digestive systems, which meant bigger bodies overall. Advantage number 4, ecological opportunity and a near total absence of competition. For roughly 150 million years, dinosaurs occupied nearly every major land ecosystem on Earth, largely without competition from any other group of animals attempting to fill the same large herbivore or large predator roles. Mammals existed throughout this entire period, but almost all of them stayed small. Generally rat to badger sized, likely kept in check by both direct and indirect pressure from the dinosaurs already dominating those ecological niches. Compare that to today. Modern land mammals have had only about 66 million years since the extinction event to evolve into any large-bodied ecological role, less than half the span dinosaurs had. And during much of that time, they've also had to compete directly with each other across multiple large-bodied lineages simultaneously, rather than expanding into wide-open, unclaimed ecological space the way dinosaurs originally did. So when you add it all up, a hyper-efficient, lightweight respiratory and skeletal system, decades of continuous indeterminate growth, an environment producing enormous volumes of plant biomass, and 150 million years of ecological space with minimal competition, you don't need weaker gravity or thicker air to explain dinosaur gigantism. You just need those 4 biological and ecological advantages, compounding on top of each other for an almost unimaginably long stretch of time. It's also worth pointing out that gigantism wasn't evenly distributed across all dinosaurs, and the pattern of who got big and how big actually reinforces everything we just covered. The true giants, animals like Argentinosaurus, Patagotitan, and Dreadnoughtus, were almost all long-necked plant-eating sauropods. That's not a coincidence. Sauropods combined every advantage we just discussed at once. The most extreme version of the air sac respiratory system, the longest growth periods, and a body plan built entirely around processing huge volumes of low-quality plant food through an enormous gut. Their long necks weren't just for reaching tall trees. Many researchers now think the neck also functioned like a giant feeding tool, letting the animal graze a wide area of vegetation without needing to move its massive body very often, saving enormous amounts of energy in the process. Predatory dinosaurs, by contrast, never got anywhere close to sauropod size, and there's a straightforward reason why. Tyrannosaurus rex, at roughly 8 to 9 tons, was genuinely massive for a land predator, larger than any land predator alive today by a wide margin. But being a predator comes with a hard ceiling that herbivores don't face in the same way. A predator's body size is fundamentally limited by the size and abundance of its prey, and by the physical demands of actually catching that prey. There's no evolutionary advantage to a predator outgrowing what it can realistically hunt, chase down, or overpower. Herbivores, on the other hand, aren't limited by needing to catch anything. Their limiting factor is almost entirely about how much low-quality food they can process, which, as we covered, actually favors getting bigger, not staying smaller. This split, enormous plant eaters, comparatively smaller, but still record-breaking predators, shows up consistently throughout dinosaur history on basically every continent, which is exactly what you'd expect if body size was being driven by consistent underlying biological rules, rather than random chance or a handful of isolated lucky species. It's worth asking briefly where the weaker gravity idea even came from in the first place, since it's still so widespread today. It isn't an old scientific theory that got debunked. It's mostly a modern internet explanation, popularized because it sounds intuitive and doesn't require any background in biology to understand. Things were bigger because the physical rules were different is a satisfying, simple story. So the next time you see a claim online that dinosaurs were only big because of weaker gravity or thicker prehistoric air, you'll know the real explanation is more interesting than that and considerably more grounded in actual evidence, bird-like lungs and hollow bones, decades of uninterrupted growth, an environment producing enormous quantities of plant food, and 150 million years of nearly uncontested ecological dominance. 4 separate advantages, compounding quietly for 150 million years. That's how you get an animal 70 tons heavier than anything walking the earth today. If you want more deep dives into the science behind the strangest, most misunderstood creatures in Earth's history, hit subscribe. This is Fossil Zoo, and we're just getting started.